Welcome to our Gifts of God program, our Sunday talk. I'm so glad to be here. And I want to also acknowledge Prue and Michelle in Australia. It's a very odd time for them in the middle of the night to come on Sunday, so they rely on the recordings, and that's wonderful. We can do that and also include them. So today, a couple of things. I did want to introduce you to some other work because Sandra and I speak quite a lot about longevity and life extension. And the course is real clear that you're in charge of your body and how long you will use it for a communication device. It doesn't tell you you can live forever, but it does say you are the one in charge of your body as long as you're not using it improperly for attack and for ego purposes. You can keep the body healthy as long as you have a need for it to fulfill your mission. And I think we all have a mission in studying this work, to be a light, to be our light, discover our light inside of ourselves, and then be that light out in the world that we share. And that's uplifting our brothers and sisters, and that's kind of our mission. And as long as we're doing that, we more or less need a body to communicate, right? It's a communication device. So therefore, it's good for us to keep our body healthy and in good shape, and we can keep it as long as we choose and as long as we're being directed in our mission. So that being said, there are other writers and spiritual teachers who have also taken up that banner of life extension. And one of these, as Sandra knows personally, we haven't seen him for many years. We think he's in seclusion in, what's that island south of Australia? Tasmania. We think he might be living in Tasmania, kind of off the grid. But anyhow, he's written quite a lot of good books on this subject. His name is Robert Kuhn. And this is a book that I'm working on now, and I find it really good. It's called The Art of Everlasting Life. And the good part about this is he has a lot of prayers and invocations that are helpful. So I think that's the way we're going to break through, is through prayer and our divine connection. And this is all about our divine connection. He's incredible in how he can invoke the presence. So that this book has a lot of sacred invocations in it. And I just wanted to share his work with you. Now, I'm not sure you can find it on Amazon because his publisher is called Lulu, Lulu. And I think it's a platform out of England. I'm not sure. They might have a branch in the US, but I know when I order a book of his, it takes a couple of weeks to get here. So, but not to worry, it always comes. It's comparable prices to Amazon, and he has a number of books. So if you just go on lulu.com and you put in Robert Kuhn, it'll probably show all of his books. Another area of his expertise is what he calls earth chakras. So he is one of the first who realized and then studied and did pilgrimages to different spots on the planet. And he said that the earth is a living being, right? The earth is a living soul, and it has chakras just like the human body. And these chakras are very specific where they are, like the heart chakra, he says is in Glastonbury, England, and then different points around the globe: Lake Titicaca, Ayers Rock in Australia, the pyramids. There are a couple of other, Mount Kailash in Tibet. Yeah, different points around the globe are like energy points, and they would be like in our body. We have energy centers, chakras. So he says the globe has these, and they're all interconnected, and they're all living. It's the Earth is a living being, probably more intelligent, more profound than humans, right? So we need to get in touch with that life of the planet through these different chakras around the planet. Now, I know that he says that Bali, and this is one of the reasons we go there, although Bali doesn't have a specific chakra point, it has a number of immortality points. And it's like, if you're interested in physical immortality, those places are essential. And two of those places we go to on the Bali quest. One is this Besaki temple on Mount Agung, and the other is this immortality spring at Tirta Empal. So we go and we bathe in those waters and every year, and we feel that kind of charges us up, you know. But the more important thing he says about Bali is it's a point of convergence where all the ley lines of the planet, and ley lines are like energy connecting forces, right, that connect these chakras together. And the whole Earth has this series of ley lines. Well, they converge. It's like an infinity sign, right? And they converge on Bali, and they're cleansed. So Bali is the place where all the ley lines of the whole planet kind of do this, direction around, and then they converge in Bali. And Bali is so pure of an energy, it like transmutes the negative, the negative vibes that these lines have picked up going around, right? So they enter Bali, and then because it's got all these sacred spots, the ley lines get cleansed. And that's one of the things that he talks about. I think one of his books is called Earth Chakras, and you'll find that if you're interested on this Lulu publishing platform. But also, if you just Googled Robert Kuhn, his website has a lot of that information on the Earth Chakras as well. So it's pretty extensive, the material on his website. And it's interesting because I just went on there recently myself, because Sandra and I were like scratching our head and saying, well, do you think he's still in a body, or do you think he's hiding out, or just what, because you go on his website and there's no contact us, there's no like get in touch with Robert Kuhn kind of thing, right? However, I did notice that the website is updated, and the current date on the bottom is 2024. So I know somebody, and probably him, has been on there updating his site, and it did have a lot of updates, I did notice. So that was just my extra share on some other material that we might be interested in. And Sandra thinks very highly of Robert Kuhn. And yes, even though Leonard Orr put out Physical Immortality in the Rebirthing World, Sandra always felt that Robert was a much purer channel for that subject. So anyhow, Robert, we think, is still out there, and he's still writing, and it would be good to look into his work if you're inclined. Yeah, so I wanted to start with this. He calls it the Omega Point Invocation. It's a very beautiful prayer, and you don't have to write it down, because I'm going to be making this talk into a YouTube video. So I always send you those links once I've done that. But I wanted to start with this because it's very profound, and I think it's words, but in the same way, we need to get in touch with the words in the Course in a much deeper way. Like, what if the word has power, right? The word has this power. And even the Course says it's your mind that you have to work with, and that your identity is a thought in the mind of God, and it capitalizes thought, right? Your identity is not a body, not a personality, it's spirit, and it's a thought in the mind of God, and it's connected to every other thought in the mind of God. Well, that would be a word, right? And even in the Bible, I think the book of John starts, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was everything, right? So creation begins with this word, this manifestation of word. And then we're given this whole Course in Miracles, which is like, what is it? 1,500 pages long when you add it all up, or 1,200 pages long. I mean, it's a lot of words, right? And a lot of powerful words. So how are we relating to the word? And are we getting the power of the word? You know, are we receiving the miracle, basically? You know, all the lessons in the Course, in the workbook, are miracles, but are we receiving them? Are we applying them? Are we bringing them into application in ourself? And this is our relationship with the word. And it's something beyond thought, in the sense that it's not from memory, it's not from something we learned, it's not from, how we normally, memorize stuff and think that because we know it, that we've done our job, right? There's another step with the words in the Course. It's like we have to take them beyond the thought into the actualization of it. And some of them are so lofty, like it's thoughts we've never thought of before. Like let's just say lesson, I choose, heaven is the decision I must make. Okay, that's a lesson, right? I think it's 138. Heaven is the decision I must make. Well, who's ever asked you to make that decision? Where have you ever read something like that, where heaven is in your power to decide for it? I mean, these are miracles. Like these are words that have never been spoken to the human race, right? And there they are in the Course in Miracles, staring us in the face. And then now the challenge is, I've never made a decision like that. I've never had that kind of a clarity where I know I have this power to make a decision, and then there's this state of being called heaven that I'm making the decision for. We've never had that kind of clarity. And it's all there on like what, 2 pages of words. Like those 2 pages of words could transform you more than 50 lifetimes of being a Catholic. It's just like so distilled and so precise and so miraculous that if we really got it, we'd be in a state of heaven on earth. I mean, it would just have to happen. You don't think Jesus would lie to us, do you? I mean, you don't think he'd give us this doorway into another dimension that wasn't possible for us to walk through? I mean, he wouldn't do that. Why would he waste his time? And I like sometimes what Sandra says when Babaji said these pretty far out things. Like he said, well, Om Namah Shivaya is more powerful than the atomic bomb if you just, recite it. You could overcome any problem with it. Well, then Sandra says, and you don't think Babaji would lie to us, do you? I mean, he was not going to tell us an untruth. So if something is a stretch, if it's a stretch and it's something we never thought about, and it's kind of like, well, if we really were to do that, we'd be in a totally different state of mind. It has to be possible and it has to be true. So when it says, well, heaven is the decision I must make, there must first of all be a heaven, and then there must be a way to get there, and then there must be something that we can do called a decision that would get us there. And these are very real possibilities. They're not belief systems. They're not dependent on belief in the sense that, you have to declare, oh, I'm a Christian, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm a Church of Turkey, or, it doesn't rely on that. No, it's just almost like a science of the spirit. If you do this, this will happen. And that's how the Course is presented. It's presented in the most logical way. And if the premises are true, then the possibilities are there. They would have to be, if the premises are true. So like the whole Course in Miracles kind of rests on this acceptance on our part that the thing is true, that these are statements made by the Christ consciousness to us, and that's true. We accept that fact. And then, being who the Christ is, he's not going to lie to us, right? He's not going to give us something that's not possible, or that is far-fetched, or that you can't achieve, or you can't realize in yourself. He's not going to give us that because that's not his job. Is to give us only what's going to help us ascend, right? And that's his job, and that's why he's here in the first place. And that's why any spiritual master comes in the first place, to assist humanity in their adaptation upward. It's like that's what a spiritual master does. And that's what hanging out with them does for us. They force us to adapt upward. All right? So if we're stuck in a hell we made up, they're going to come and say, well, you did that all to yourself. You can stop doing it, and you can make a decision for heaven. And it's so simple. It's almost so simple, it blows our mind. And our mind needs to be blown because we've complicated it so much. And then the spiritual master is going to come and say, it's not complicated. You just have to make a decision. And that's far outside the way we've thought our whole lives. Our thinking is very complicated. Oh, to have a good life, to have a happy life, you go to college and you study X, Y, and Z, and all that stuff's complicated. It takes years, right? and you got to go over it and memorize this and be that. And then, if you're lucky, you'll be an expert in that field, and then you'll use that expertise. And it's very long and drawn out and very complicated. And now here the Course comes along and gives you something simple. It just basically says, well, all your unhappiness, you've inflicted it on yourself, and you can stop doing that, and you can decide for happiness. And that's how you step into the life of happiness. It's through a decision. All right, but the word has to be heeded. The word has to have the power to transform us in its bare simplicity. It's so direct and so simple. It almost goes over our head. It's so direct and so simple. Yeah. So anyhow, I wanted to read this invocation that Robert Kuhn gave, but I wanted to kind of prepare you to get in the right vibe to hear it, right? Because it's so beautiful. And it has a little bit of a history. Robert Kuhn's a mystic. And like a lot of mystics, they've had very direct contact with ascended beings, like Dr. Schucman I would say, even though she's a scientist and she's a psychologist, she's still also a mystic extraordinaire. For anyone to have that kind of a contact with Jesus and the Christ speaking to her, she'd have to have faculties that most normal people don't have, right? So anyhow, thank God she did have them, and thank God she came and brought this material to us. Well, Robert Kuhn's similar in a different way. So when he was in his 20s or early 20s, Elijah came to him, materialized and transmitted this knowledge of physical immortality. And it was for a number of hours Elijah was there, in a form, actually speaking to him. So this was I think in the 60s. Yeah. And then in the 70s, after he'd kind of integrated that a while, he had this visitation by these other masters. See, he's also in the Jewish lineage. I think that was his heritage. He was brought up in the Kabbalah and in the mystical Judaic tradition, right? So these Judaic masters came to him and transmitted this invocation that he calls the Omega Point invocation. And he got it on a certain day, on a certain holy day. I think it was Rosh Hashanah in 1975 on a special Excalibur Hill in the San Francisco area. That's where he was living. Well, so he received this knowledge, right, from these ascended masters. And then he had to take time to integrate it. And then that's when he started integrating and discovering this thing about the earth chakras, right? So in the next 10 years, he had this transmission that he had to integrate, and it included a lot of these earth chakra knowledge. So then once he discovered that, Glastonbury is the heart chakra, he went and he lived there for quite a number of years, and that's where Sandra first met him. So one of his directions was to go to the top of the Tor, because I don't know if you've been to Glastonbury. I know Monique's been there. The Tor is this hill. It's a man-made hill. It's very ancient. It's prehistoric. It's around the time, I think maybe Stonehenge. I think Stonehenge is 3000 BC. Stonehenge isn't that far from Glastonbury, maybe an hour's drive. And the Tor is kind of from that period, right? So it's very ancient. And it represents also a time when the Divine Mother was still very much honored and worshipped. It wasn't until, later, Alexander the Great and the Romans and that whole period where the patriarchy came in and pushed down the worship of the mother, right? So anyhow, Glastonbury represents that period where the mother was still very much revered, and the Tor is very much in that energy of the Divine Mother. So in 1985, I think it was, Robert Kuhn was in Glastonbury living, and he had this intimation that he needed to go to the top of the Tor and read this invocation out loud, recite this invocation that he'd been given 10 years prior, called this Omega Point meditation, and that meditation was actually going to almost activate the Tor to be the actual heart chakra of the planet. Like, he knew that that's, in ancient times, that's what it was, but it kind of been so ignored for so many thousands of years, it needed to be recharged, right? So he went on top of the Tor and he read out loud this activation. And wouldn't you know it, that's also the day Sondra Ray meets him up on top of the Tor, right? He's saying, I call forth all immortalists of the universe. And Sondra's going up the Tor at midnight, and she hears him saying that, and she says, here I am. So imagine that kind of a meeting. First of all, you can't imagine it. It's like divinely predestined, right? And there it is. And so she had this long-term relationship with him on this subject. So I wanted to open this. I mean, it's a long introduction, but this is called the Invocation of the Omega Point. And I'll also send you guys this. I have it in a PDF file. I'll send it to you. Now, he says that it's so powerful, you don't want to use it as kind of daily practice. It's more like for special occasions and for, like, if you're opening up some kind of big action that's going to happen, or like, say we're going on the India Quest and we're going to have all these people from around the world. I might open up the India Quest with this. So it's to be used in a very reverential way for very special or blessings of a larger whole, not to be used as like a daily thing that you just sort of, do by rote. No, it's to be done in a very special way. So I wanted to read it as my introduction of Robert Kuhn to you guys, that you can look more into his work. And also I wanted to use it to bless this Gifts of God program. And I know that there's something happening because this week I was kvetching a little bit. I was a little bit complaining to Sondra. I was saying, we put our hearts into this, and there should be, instead of 8 people, maybe 80 people, And I was just like kvetching, and I got off it in a hurry, but I was just, thinking about that. And as soon as I got off it, Galera signed up. Like, it was like immediate. It's like I said, well, no, I shouldn't be thinking like that, but it would be nice to have a few more people. And I sort of let it go. And then I looked at my email, and there she was. She had just come on. So I think that I needed to kind of go through that and just let it go. And especially with this thing we've read this week about how do you make a correction in yourself or in anyone else. It's like you make the correction by stepping out of the ego that made the problem in the first place, not by trying to correct the ego's problem, because the ego's problem is uncorrectable, right? So the real correction is to see that the problem isn't even there because it's made up by the ego, and the ego is not even real. So like this joy of stepping outside the ego's thought system is the only correction we really need to make. It's like, how do you solve a problem? You know, there are those lessons, 79 and 80. Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize the problem has been solved. Well, what is that? What is that problem? The only one problem, it says, is your imagined separation, which is your ego. Your ego is that part of your mind that has separated, right, from its source, or at least thought it was separate. And it says there's only one problem to correct, and that's your imagined separation. So when you correct that, all your problems are solved. So, well, there it is. It's like you don't solve the problem by focusing on it and trying to get the answer where the problem was made. No, you just see the problem is not real. It was made by the ego, and I'm not going to be fooled by that anymore, and I'm going to go a different way. So there it is. So anyhow, this omega point invocation is like, it's the heaven that we're stepping into. Like, if heaven is the decision I must make, well, what's that going to look like when we step into it? We need an experience of that. And that's why we go on these spiritual quests, because when we're hanging out with high people who are helping us adapt upward in these most powerful spots on the planet that are already spiritually charged, it's easy to have an experience of the heaven state because you're just in that place, you know? So, well, Glastonbury Tor is one of those places where when you're on top of the Tor, you feel like you're on top of the universe. I'm serious. It's like something that you've never experienced. Just like you go to Heracon, you feel like you're in Shangri-La. Just like when you go to the Immortal Springs in Bali, you feel like you can live forever, right? So these spots, that's why we go there, to get charged up. So, okay. So anyhow, that said, this is Omega Point is going to connect you with the Glastonbury Tor, which is the heart chakra of the planet. And you just may feel your heart open up. So just be ready. I'm gonna read it slowly, and I'm gonna send it to you in a PDF. And this can be part of your toolbox, right? But just remember, only on a special occasion, only on something where you really got a big thing that you want to send that energy to. Yeah. So this is, and we're using this to bless the Gifts of God program and our work together on bringing the Course in Miracles into application, and our reverence for the Course and our gratitude for the Course and that whole lineage, Dr. Shukman, all the people that brought it in, Tara Singh, my teacher, even Krishnamurti before that. I feel he's part of that lineage. So this is the invocation of the Omega Point. Know, O universe, that I love you with all the grace and with all the power of the love of Messiah. That my awareness is eternally caressing all forms of reality, sharing this bliss in the most beautiful and creative manifestations. Let my heart be possessed by the Spirit of truth. Let my existence be dedicated to the enlightenment of all consciousness throughout the universe. Let my enthusiasm be a light of love and truth for all to feel. Oh, let my touch be the highest manifestation for the will divine. Let my every action transform this reality into greater and more loving perfections. Let my body be the most sacred temple of truth. The omega point is here in my heart. The omega point is here. I proclaim the victory of peace throughout the universe. That's it. And it sounds kind of simple, but it's deeper than you think. You know, I've been studying this for a couple of years now, and I know I'm starting to get to the edge of the truth of it, like where I'm getting the edge of the power of it. Just like that statement, heaven is the decision I must make. Well, we've been reading that lesson for 20 years, right? Well, how close are we to it? That decision, where we go through that, whatever that is, that resistance to totally let go of the ego. And now we're in a different thought system called the Holy Spirit. And that's our guide. You know, that's similar, like going up on top of the Tor, and Robert Kuhn knows that this chakra system exists and that this place on the planet has such a powerful importance from the heart. And he's reading this invocation into this knowledge, right? And also into the physical entity of the Tor. And he's like activating this whole omega point for the whole planet to benefit, right? So that's what we have to do as students of the course. We're getting these lessons. They're like nectar, right? Divine nectar, which means these are words that have been distilled down through eons to have a spiritual power. And they didn't just arrive on our doorstep casually, right? It took the wisdom of the ages to distill it enough and then put it in a language we can understand, right? And then there it is, and we have it in our lifetime. And it's not been translated or messed with, you know? It hasn't been like monkeyed with by some other organization. And there it is. Aren't we the fortunate ones? So the same with something like this. We're the fortunate ones to know this. And that's why I wanted to introduce him. Get to know him a little better. I think he'll enhance your spiritual growth, Robert Kuhn. And I think maybe the end of this year or maybe next year, we're going to Australia. Maybe we'll bump into him. I don't know. Some of the people there that we know have had contact with him. And so maybe they'll have some new information. But I've never met him. Saunders met him on numerous occasions. But I think he's the real deal, and would be good to pay attention. The other thing that I know, this is a little bit not so focused on the course this week. There's this other gentleman that he's very profound and maybe not so spiritual in the sense that he's not talking about the Course in Miracles or even spiritual matters, but he's the most profound commentator I have met on art. And he's kind of been my inspiration because I write these posts on my art site called Artlook. And although my style's a little different than his, and I can't even pronounce his name because it's this long Polish name, but his first name is Waldemar, right? Waldemar Jaroszewski, you know, it's some long Polish name after that. And he's on YouTube. And if you just YouTube Perspectives, because that's the YouTube station that talks about art, You can find some of his commentaries on art, and they're just superb, in my opinion. And he goes so much into the depth of the history of the artist and the times, and he gives a whole background, and even the filming of his things that he's talking about is very well done. And the other thing I like about him is he's kind of funny. He's not polished in his appearance. He's kind of frumpy, a little overweight, and he hasn't combed his hair. It's kind of disheveled, and he's a little bit frumpy, and a little bit funny, and sometimes even silly. But he's so on point with the art that he can just nail it. He can just really nail what the meaning of this is, and what's the extra gift that it has. And he sees behind the scenes, and how was it made, and why was it made, and what were the conditions around the artist at the time. So he would be another good one to look into, to add to your spiritual journey. Yeah, Valdemar on art, and he's on YouTube. Well, getting back to this thing with the correction this week, and today's podcast was on the unhealed healer. And I think as practitioners of breath work, a lot of people come to us with their issues, and we're there. I wouldn't call ourselves psychotherapists. In fact, we always tell people this is not psychotherapy. Breath work is spiritual purification. And also, the thing that this section on the unhealed healer made was, even if you are a facilitator of healing, it's not you doing the healing. It's the Holy Spirit doing the healing. And you're just there to help people get in touch with that power of their own Holy Spirit within them that can help them let go and heal. And so, as quote unquote healers, you have to be really clear about two things. One is that the problem is not really there. The sickness is not really there, and you can't make it real first and then undo it. The healing happens when you see that there's some other factor there that has projected the illness, right? And that other factor always comes from the ego, and then our job as healers is to get people to step out of the ego. So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing is, as quote unquote healers, you see, you're not the one doing it. It's another force greater than yourself that's the active ingredient in the healing. And I think years ago, this is why we started reading the Divine Mother names in the sessions. And it's also why we've introduced the mantras to the breathing now through mantra breathing, is that this is an invocation of a higher power that's not us, that brings in that force, brings in that healing power of the Holy Spirit to help with people, whatever that need is. We don't even understand what the problem is. How could we heal if we don't even understand all the conditions that made up the illness? So only the Holy Spirit would be seeing the whole picture, right? And then also seeing what are that person's readiness, receptivity, levels of fear, because it says, an instant healing could induce much more fear in a person, and it's not the Holy Spirit's job to put you more in fear. So there's a lot of factors in healing that we as, quote, healers would not be aware of, in the sense that we have to turn that whole process over to a force greater than ourselves. And I think this individually, we have to see it this way too. If we're facing a problem in our own life, or something in our body, or an illness, a financial problem, a relationship problem, whatever that particular problem is, how fast can we turn it over to the Holy Spirit, and how completely can we turn it over to the Holy Spirit to solve? Because usually we think we have to solve it ourselves, right? We have to do X, Y, and Z, and we have to do this protocol, or we have to go do this and that. And then, well, maybe there are things we do have to do, but still, the bigger picture is we have to be guided, and we have to be turning it over to this force greater than ourselves. And that's the most important part of the healing process. And if we're not doing that, it's very easy, the thing said today, to be an unhealed healer. And then your healings won't work because you haven't received them yourself. It's deep. It's deep. And, I was almost afraid to read that section, because, we're actually in the world as, breathwork practitioners, and people see us as healers. And, how much of the healing have we accepted in ourselves as healers? Because that would determine how much we can help others, Like, if you're an unhealed healer, then your healings, if they haven't healed you, they're not going to heal anybody else. And that's a sobering thing to look at in the field that we're in. How much of the healing have you received yourself? Because that's going to determine what you have to give to others. And so I'm glad we looked at that today. We needed to look at that. It took us to a new level, I think, looking at that. We don't know what to do about them, is what this thing was saying. You don't know what to do about it. But the Holy Spirit knows. And how much can you let go into that healing energy? Yeah. Well, I think we need to practice surrender, and I think we all have. We wouldn't be here if there wasn't some major part of us that hasn't already surrendered a big part of our ego over, We wouldn't even be here studying this together. But like we say, until you're raising the dead and walking on water, you still have something to clear, which means we still have something to let go of, right? What's the clearing? The clearing is just a deeper level of letting go, of surrendering. And this, thank goodness we have this time in this lifetime to let go more completely. And as we let go, we ascend more. I was kind of expressing my gratitude to Sandra. I don't know quite how it's happened, but I noticed that it has happened over the last couple of years, even since the pandemic, let me say. Our financial situation has improved so much. It's like making me wonder, maybe I really have healed my money case, you know? So, so we're in such good shape financially that I don't even know how we got there. We just kept doing our work and doing our work and putting it out there and doing the best we could and going with the inspiration, you know, with the mantra breathing and this and that. And all of a sudden, I noticed we're doing so well. I shouldn't even ever have to worry about the future, you know. And so that's sort of happened, and I'm glad to see that. And now I think both of us are working on a few things in our bodies, which I know we can solve, or the Holy Spirit can help us solve it. But it's good to see that being on this spiritual path, let's just call it, it's not really a path. Krishnamurti said truth is a pathless land, but there is an attention you have to give to it, right? Wouldn't we all agree? There's an attention you have to give to your spiritual ascension, your spiritual life, and your evolution. And there is an attention you have to give to it. It's an energy you have to direct in that way. Well, after you've been directing it in that way for so long as we have been, it's nice to see positive results evolving and your life getting more happy and more secure and more peaceful and more abundant and more just flowing in a good way, you know? And it's the first time on any of our India quests where, and I think I shared this, we have this couple in Bali that really merit going to India. And of course, they didn't have the funds because people in Bali, they don't have the same kind of economic structure as we have. So we're paying their way, you know, full way, paid their airfare, paying their hotels, paying everything, food, everything. So we're paying their way to go because they're Babaji devotees and they've been to Harakan once, but now they have this little boy that they're bringing who they've adopted. So we're paying their way. And it feels so great to do that. And furthermore, it's no stress, you know? We have so much surplus, we almost don't know what to do with it now. So we're doing things like that, and it feels really good. So I know something is happening, and our attention to our own spiritual life is making all that gel and making all that happen. So, yeah. Well, I know I felt like kind of rambled today, but I don't know. When I listen to these after I make them, or they do have a continuity, and they are pretty, like, you know, going in a good straight direction. But sometimes I don't quite know what I'm supposed to say, but then it just sort of comes out. And I know this sharing Robert Kuhn today, I think that's really important. I hope you guys look into him a little bit more, especially this particular book, The Art of Everlasting Life. It has, you know, a lot of very good prayers and a lot of practices in here. And he's quite a poet. You know, I can relate. That's probably one reason I relate to him so well, because he writes very poetically. And it's very beautiful how he writes, and just to read them as uplifting prayers, it's good for me. I like to do that. Yeah. So it's been a really good week here. Just a little thing funny to end on. You know, I wrote this little Ganesh book. I'm very close to Ganesh. And even some clairvoyant in Bali picked that up, and Sandra was having a reading, and I wasn't really having the reading, but she looked over at me and said, wow, he's really connected to Ganesh. And it was true. but it must be in my aura field, right? So anyhow, I wrote this little Ganesh book. It's like little aphorisms, and I've been reading that myself. But one thing that happened not too long ago was I had this perfect little pocket Ganesh that I carried with me for years. My friend in California gave it to me, and I never found one so nice as this little pocket Ganesh, right? And it didn't have any sharp edges. It was kind of rounded, and it was just perfect casting. The details were really sharp. Well, in India a couple of years ago, I lost it. And then I found it, but then I lost it again. I was kind of a little bit, upset that I'd lost my favorite Ganesh. Well, and I looked for it for years, different shops and in India, went on the streets in India. I could never find one like that. All the ones I found had real sharp edges, and, to have them in your pocket, it wouldn't even feel good, right? So I never found the right one. Well, anyhow, I don't know what prompted me. I was mousing around a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this little guy on Etsy, right? I thought, wow, that's my pocket Ganesh. Where did it come from? How did it show up here? Well, so I ordered 5 of them, and then it wasn't exactly the one that I had before, but it was close. And then I was mousing around again on the same site, and I found the one that was exactly like the one I lost. So I ordered 5 more of those, right? So before you know it, I have, a little cachet of these little Ganeshas. And then I thought, well, they look pretty good together. I'm forming a little Ganesh army here. I'm going to order some more. So I ordered another batch. And then the lady actually wrote me because she noticed I was ordering all these little Ganeshas, right? And she says, oh, I've noticed you ordered these Ganeshas, and how are they for you? And I said, yeah, they're good. And I wrote this little book, and I'll send you a copy. And then I ordered 10 more. So now I have this little Ganesh army of about 35 little Ganeshas, right? And I have them all under my little Nandi. I have this little Nandi bowl that I got in Mexico with all these colorful beads, right? Made by this tribe in Mexico. So I've got my little Nandi, and then Amaji is up above, and then I got these little Ganesh army down below, and it's growing. And I found this quintessentially perfect little pocket Ganesh again. I'm so happy about it, and I would give it to my male friends. I called it the Ganesh Brotherhood, right? So I would give my buddies that would come on the India Quest, I'd give them a little pocket Ganesh and a little copy of my Ganesh book, and we have this kind of Ganesh Brotherhood. So I don't know about Ganesh Sisterhood, but some of you have that little Ganesh book. I think it's pretty powerful. Yeah. So anyhow, that's my funny thing to end on this week, and I'm real happy about it. I have my little Ganesh army, and it's like a lot of the altars in our house, like this Divine Mother altar. I feel it's doing a kind of a work, even when we're not here. So when we leave, and sometimes we're on the road for a month or 2, and I really feel that the altars in our house are doing their work, whether we're here or not, and that energy is going out. And I think that's why Babaji sent us to Washington, because we're really needed here, and this energy is really needed here, because America is really going through some stuff, and has been for a number of years. And now we really need this energy here. So that's one reason we have the altars, for helping the energy in Washington, D.C. And now I have a little Ganesh army. I'm real happy about that. Removing obstacles underneath the Divine Mother with the Nandi. And yeah, so yeah, I'm excited. Well, gals, thank you so much. I'm determined to get Leonard on this Gifts of God program. We need a little bit more male energy, and hopefully he'll like see the light. So pray for me. I'll put that forth to him this week. God bless. I'll have this talk up on YouTube by the end of the day, and I'll send it out to you in the Gifts of God program, and you'll have it there on the WhatsApp. All righty? Well, God bless. Thank you for being here. Much love. Much love.